Do you notice that a lot of the tribes, they're kind of, or they're, I guess maybe not black.
The Cleveland Indians. It's a picture of Tris Speaker, manager of the Cleveland Indians, and the team mascot. Look at the Indian. Black versus mixed.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up out of your sleep, sleep.
Just a century ago, Euro-Americans in the U.S. actually viewed Negro citizens as the most authentic representation of American Indians. Today, that sounds ludicrous to not only them, but to Black Americans too. Why did they think that way 100 years ago? First of all, let's produce some receipts to prove white people even did think that way. As of the posting of this video, it's currently May 2025. It so happens that last month, April 18th to be precise, was the anniversary of the release of a rare, valuable, old baseball photograph from the opening of Henley Field in Lakeland, Florida. The photo belonged to Newspaper Enterprise Association, which was like Getty Images, but in the early 1900s. And Henley Field back then was called Athletic Park. The photo, now worth about $300, was from the opening of the field about 3 years prior, when it was christened by the Cleveland Indians. It's a picture of Tris Speaker, manager of the Cleveland Indians, and the team mascot. The mascot is a teenage boy holding a bow and arrow. Why? Because the mascot of the Cleveland Indians would have to be an Indian, obviously. In fact, the original name given to the photo by the NEA was Cleveland Indians presented with mascot. You can see all that in caps at the beginning of the inscription. Let's read the first sentence for the sake of your own verification. Quote, Cleveland Indians presented with mascot at opening of new $125,000 athletic field at Lakeland, Florida, their training camp, end quote. Look at the Indian. Today, he would be called an African American, but Negroes in the U.S. wouldn't start identifying as Africans until after the influence of the Harlem Renaissance had time to propagate. The Harlem Renaissance lasted through the 1930s, but started in April 1924, just 1 year prior to this event. Its influence was non-existent at this time because its primary movers and shakers hadn't yet done any of the things that ignited the movement. To get a breakdown on that, go watch my video on how the Harlem Renaissance silenced American Indians. The point is, there was no sense of Afrocentrism in the Black American community yet. The white people didn't yet see black people as singularly African. They felt this black kid was a perfect representation of what they considered an authentic Indian to be. Nevertheless, this photo went for auction in 2011 at Hakes Auctions. Let's see how Hakes Auctions described this in their own item description. First sentence says, quote, date stamped on reverse, NEA, April 18th, 1925. That just means April 18th, 1925 is when someone originally received the photo from Newspaper Enterprise Association. Anyway, quote, shows manager Tris Speaker in uniform on field with young African American boy standing next to him holding bow and arrow as crowd in stands looks on, end quote. See, this is written in 2011, and the perspective of white people has changed by then. The term African American wasn't popularized by Jesse Jackson until 1988, and if you're unfamiliar with that, here's an Associated Press article from 1988 headed, quote, leaders say blacks want to be called African Americans. The lead reads, quote, a group of black leaders, including the Reverend Jesse Jackson, says members of their race would prefer to be called African Americans rather than blacks, end quote. Yeah, it was a novel concept at the time. That's why they were reporting it as news, that we even wanted to be called that. It was a new term in 1988. So in 2011, the auctioneers can comfortably write that and feel like they're fixing an injustice, whereas in 1925, no one would have thought of such a thing. Why do you think they'd even choose an African boy to represent American Indians? What sense does that make? Wouldn't that just confuse people? How would fans even know that this kid was supposed to be viewed as an Indian? They don't even think he needs to wear a headdress or any feathered regalia to sell it either. He's wearing almost nothing, which means they think his physical features are sufficient representation of an Indian. They consider this authentic.
Hey y'all! First of all, like and subscribe to the channel, but also, Unahia is recruiting, and if you don't know what Unahia is, we're a grassroots activist group lobbying Congress to amend a bill to require education and research to acknowledge the Negro origins of Aboriginal groups of North America. If any of you have it to give, please support the campaign using the QR code on your screen, join the campaign with a donation, and if you have the time, you can even join our staff to help guide the organization, not just for this campaign, but also future endeavors. Don't speak about it, be about it. Let's go.
The same goes for the Cigar Store Indian statues. This is a watercolor painting of one of those statues, and it dates back circa 1936, painted by Walter Hochstrasser. I always like to find the multicolored ones to demonstrate that the color chosen for the skin must have been very deliberate. This is a German artist. He didn't try to match his own skin color, nor did he choose a light brown. No tan, no khaki, no beige, no taupe, no ecru, not even chocolate brown. He chose an almost Stygian brown, a burnt tone worthy of classical Greek uses of the term Ethiopian. It's a very dark brown. Here's an actual Cigar Store Indian statue dated approximately late 1800s. Look at the use of color here. We've got green leaves, black shirt and loincloth, red collar and hemline, including fringes, which is an ancient Israelite tradition, but we're not talking about that right now. Yellow leaves on the mitre, or cornice, which is basically a headband used as the base of a crown made of other materials. The cornice itself is light orange or maybe gold, but the earrings are a darker orange. These shades are all very specific to differentiate between yellow, light orange, and dark orange like that. So you know the skin color is very intentional and not just a result of a lack of color choices or primitive color palette. The choice for complexion was a deeply dark reddish brown. The statue originates from Maryland or Delaware, according to Simpson Galleries. So that could mean the Indian in question is Pamunkey, maybe, or Lenape. It's a historic statue because of its authenticity, and it sold for $15,000. One more Cigar Store Indian here, rendered by Thomas V. Brooks, was actually a legend in his day. He was actually a legend in his day. It's not dated, but I'm gonna say somewhere between 1840 and 1860, because Brooks was best known for the works he crafted in the 50s and 60s, and he first opened his own shop in the late 40s. See, quote, in 1848, Brooks opened his own shop on South Street in partnership with fellow carver Thomas Millard. It is believed that major elements of the New York City show figure style were developed by Brooks during the 1850s and 1860s, end quote. Excellent use of color. Once again, fringes on the bottom hemline, Hebrewism. But anyway, the color contrast with the skin tone is stark, which definitely speaks volumes about the intentionality of the shade chosen for the complexion here. I've shown you 3 Cigar Store Indians. Why? The Hijiti principle. The Hijiti principle. 1 is an incident, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern. We've demonstrated a pattern of artists and craftsmen from the mid-1800s through early 1900s depicting American Indians as very dark-skinned people. Now, these statues can also be found with lighter complexions too, but always investigate the date of creation. Here's a light-skinned Cigar Store Indian statue auctioned in 2023, but of course, it's only dated back to 1972, which is pretty recent by comparison. He's still brown, of course, but he's lighter than all the rest by a mile. Other light-skinned statues are often not even being auctioned at all because they have no historic value, like this guy, which you can just buy on Etsy. The craftsman is Walter Brent Thompson, who, while skilled, is alive and selling on Etsy personally today. So when you look at this informational blog on Cigar Store Indians, you see pictures of these recent ones being made with light complexion, but read the first paragraph. Quote, "In the 19th century, many people could not read. So store owners placed carvings of various symbols in front of their shops so passers-by knew what was sold inside. A carving of a wooden Indian indicated a tobacco store. A red, white, and blue striped pole symbolized a barber. 3 gold balls represented a pawn shop. A mortar and pestle indicated an apothecary." End quote. So the point of the Cigar Store Indian was for marketing purposes. The point of the Cigar Store Indian was for marketing purposes. You advertise your tobacco and simultaneously brand your shop. Indians were directly associated with tobacco. So if you want people to think you have not just tobacco, but good tobacco, you'd want them to see a pretty authentic looking Indian. You don't want to model it on the biracial natives. You want to model it on the pre-Columbian Indian. Why? For the same reason you don't just want him wearing a pair of European trousers. You want him clad in his tribal garb to fully convey as much indigeneity as possible, because that's what convinces people that there's good quality tobacco here. Indians are the experts, so show them an expert, a real Indian. So this brings us back to our starting point, our initial question. Why did whites used to view black people as the most authentic Indian? It's because they remembered this understanding from the Indian removal era, which was recent from their perspective. If you watched my video on how Cherokee split into black and white Indians, you remember Andrew Jackson's take on this. Here's a direct quote from Andrew Jackson during his incumbency at the White House. It's included as a footnote in this Brown University study. Quote, referring to the Cherokee opposition to land cessions on June 10th, 1816, Andrew Jackson said, quote, "In this matter, the Indians, I mean the real Indians, the natives of the forest, are little concerned. It is a stratagem only acted on by the designing half-breeds and renegade white men who have taken refuge in their country." End quote. Do you see that? As I keep showing you in video after video, it was about full-blood Indians versus the biracial Indians made by white men. Black versus mixed.
Do you notice that a lot of the tribes, they're kind of, or they're, I guess maybe not black, but it's like they're kind of, or they're, I guess maybe not black, but it's like, maybe not black, but it's like a Latino or darker, like a, not, I don't know what shit. I guess it's like a more universal shade almost, kind of like a sofa color.
Well, if you're in the jungle, you're obviously in a hot climate. If you're in a hot climate, you better develop some fucking melanin. You better develop some fucking melanin. Fucking melanin.
Yeah,
in your skin.
that's what it is melanin. They got more melanin families.
I mean, if you look at it, I'm Italian mostly. If you look at it, and I have some Irish in me too, but if you look at Italians who are in the sun all the time, dude, they get dark as fuck.
Yeah.
You know, and if you were seven plus generations of people living in this one area where you're exposed to like tropical sunlight all the time, man, you would brown the fuck up or you wouldn't make it.
Yeah, that's true. I go to Costa Rica even for a couple days and I'm fucking, browned out.